The rejection ceremony was where omegas went to be discarded. And as Seren stood among the broken women waiting to learn their fate, she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She couldn't. 5 years ago, she'd watched her mother die, and her voice had died with her. Now the pack that had once called her blessed called her cursed instead. A silent omega, useless for bonding, useless for bearing strong pups, useless for anything but shame. Her father stood at the edge of the platform, arms crossed, watching her with the same cold hatred he'd carried since the night she'd failed to scream for help. He'd brought her here himself, signed the papers that would transfer her to whoever would take her. No one would take her. Who wanted a mate who couldn't speak? Who couldn't cry out their alpha's name? Who couldn't even beg? Then Alpha Caius of Valdris arrived. He was enormous, terrifying, a warlord whose name made grown wolves tremble. They said he'd killed his own brother for the throne. They said he trusted no one and loved nothing. He walked past every omega without a glance, beautiful ones, healthy ones, ones who called out to him with desperate, pleading voices. He stopped directly in front of Seren. "This one," he said, "the silent one." The hall erupted. Her father's face twisted in shock. Seren couldn't understand what was happening. Not until the Alpha Warlord leaned close and spoke words meant only for her. "You will be my wife. You will share my bed. You will give me heirs. But know this." His breath was cold against her ear. "I will never love you. I chose you precisely because I never could." Neither of them understood how wrong he would be. The women had been arranged like livestock. Seren stood at the end of the line, hands folded, eyes downcast, trying to breathe through the panic clawing at her chest. The rejection hall of Thornwick Pack was ancient stone and guttering torches, built centuries ago for exactly this purpose: disposal. That's what her father called it when he dragged her here at dawn. "I've tolerated your curse long enough. Today I dispose of you properly." She hadn't argued. She couldn't. The words lived somewhere deep inside her chest, trapped behind walls of scar tissue that had formed the night she'd hidden beneath her mother's bed and watched Boots pace back and forth while her mother's screams turned to silence. Seren had tried to scream then, tried to call for help, but nothing had come out. Nothing had come out since. The other women on the platform were crying, pleading, doing everything they could to attract attention from the sparse crowd of alphas who'd come to browse. A widow with 3 pups clutched at her stomach. A scarred omega with defiant eyes stood rigid. A young girl, barely of age, trembled like a leaf. And then there was Seren, 23, unmated, silent. "That one's defective," she heard someone mutter. "Can't speak a word. Been that way for years." What use is a mute omega? Can't even call out during heat. Seren kept her eyes on the stones beneath her feet. She'd learned long ago that looking up only invited more cruelty. The morning dragged on. One by one, the other women were claimed or passed over. The widow went to an elderly alpha seeking a nursemaid. The defiant one was taken by a merchant who seemed to appreciate her spirit. The young girl was saved at the last moment by a relative who paid her release fee. No one approached Seren. Her father watched from the shadows, satisfaction growing on his face with each passing hour. He wanted this, wanted to see her stand here until the final gong, unwanted and unclaimed. Then he could sell her to the labor camps with a clear conscience. A mercy, he'd called it, since no alpha will have you. The auctioneer's voice grew tired. The torches burned lower. The crowd thinned until only a handful of observers remained. "Final call," the auctioneer announced. "1 omega remaining. Female, age 23, of the Thornwick bloodline. Silent for 5 years. No confirmed defects beyond the obvious." Silence. Seren closed her eyes. This was it. The end of everything. She would be sent to the northern quarries where Omegas worked until they died. Her father would finally be free of his shameful, voiceless daughter. Then the great doors exploded open. Every head turned, every breath stopped. An alpha presence rolled through the hall like a physical force, so overwhelming that two of the remaining observers dropped to their knees involuntarily. This wasn't mere dominance. This was ancient power, the kind that came from bloodlines so pure they bordered on myth. Seren felt it even with her eyes closed, a pressure against her skin, a weight in her chest. She opened her eyes and saw him. Alpha Caius of Valdris stood in the doorway, flanked by 4 warriors in black armor. He was tall, impossibly tall, with dark hair cropped short and a face that looked carved from granite. A scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, pale against bronze skin. His eyes were the color of winter storms. They said he'd conquered 3 territories before his 30th year. They said he'd executed his own brother for treason. They said he hadn't smiled since his mother's death a decade ago. Looking at him now, Seren believed every rumor. Alpha Caius. The auctioneer's voice cracked. We were not expecting. This is merely a regional rejection ceremony. Surely your lordship has more pressing. I came for an Omega, Caius said. His voice was deep, flat, utterly without warmth. Show me what remains. The auctioneer gestured weakly toward Seren. Just the one, my lord. But I should warn you, she's defective, cannot speak. Hasn't uttered a word in 5 years. Most consider her cursed. Caius walked forward. The crowd parted before him like water before a blade. Serene's heart hammered as his footsteps grew closer. She kept her head bowed, her hands clasped, her breathing shallow. Maybe he would pass her by. Maybe he would see her worthlessness and leave. The footsteps stopped directly in front of her. A long pause. She could feel him studying her, weighing her. His scent surrounded her, pine and iron and something colder beneath. Look at me, he commanded. Seren raised her head slowly. Gray eyes met hers, cold, calculating, searching for something she couldn't name. The silence stretched. Then, without any change in expression, Alpha Caius of Valdris spoke the words that changed everything. This one, I'll take her. The carriage moved through the night like a coffin on wheels. Seren sat rigidly on the velvet seat, her hands folded in her lap, watching the dark forest blur past the window. She still didn't understand what had happened. One moment she'd been waiting for the labor camps. The next, she'd been bundled into a carriage bearing the Valdris crest and sent hurtling toward a future she couldn't comprehend. Why would the most feared alpha in the 5 territories choose a mute Omega from a minor pack's rejection ceremony? The carriage stopped. Seren's pulse spiked as a guard opened the door. Beyond him, Valdris Keep loomed against the moonlit sky. It was massive. Fortress more than castle. Built for war, not beauty. The alpha will see you in his study, the guard said. Follow me. She followed. The corridors were cold stone and flickering torchlight. Servants bowed as she passed, but their eyes held curiosity, not warmth. They were wondering the same thing she was. Why her? The guard stopped before iron-bound doors, knocked twice, pushed them open. The Omega, my lord. Seren stepped inside. The study was vast, lined with maps and weapons and books that looked older than the keep itself. A fire burned in the hearth, but it did little to warm the room. And standing before the flames, his back to her, was Alpha Caius. He didn't turn immediately, just stood there, hands clasped behind him, staring into the fire as if he'd forgotten she existed. Seren waited. She'd learned patience in 5 years of silence. Finally, he spoke. They tell me you haven't spoken in years. She nodded, though he couldn't see her. Can you write? Another nod. He turned then, crossing to his desk. He picked up a sheet of parchment and a quill, brought them to her. Show me. Seren took the quill. Her hand trembled slightly, but her letters were clear. Yes, my lord. I can write. He read the words. Something flickered in his gray eyes. Not warmth, not kindness. Something calculating. Good. He gestured to a chair. Sit. She sat. Caius remained standing, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't read. I'm going to be direct with you. I didn't choose you for your beauty or your bloodline or your breeding potential, though you're acceptable in all three. Seren's fingers tightened around the quill. I chose you because you cannot speak. She stared at him. I have enemies, he continued. Powerful ones. Ones who have tried for years to plant spies in my household. 3 of my previous mistresses were discovered passing information to rival packs. My own brother. He stopped. His jaw tightened. I trust no one, and I will never trust you. But a woman who cannot speak cannot whisper my secrets to my enemies, cannot scheme, cannot manipulate with pretty words. Seren felt something cold settle in her chest. He didn't want a mate. He wanted a tool. You will be my wife in name, Caius said. You will share my bed until you produce heirs. You will attend public functions at my side. But beyond that, we will have no relationship. I will not seek your company. I will not learn your thoughts. I will not pretend to care about your happiness. He leaned closer, and Seren saw something in his eyes then. Not cruelty. Something worse. Emptiness. I chose you because I need a wife I could never love, he said quietly. Your silence ensures that. I will never know you. I will never want to know you. You will be safe here. Protected. Comfortable. But you will be alone. He straightened. Is this acceptable to you? Seren's hand moved before she could think. She wrote quickly, the words flowing from somewhere deep inside. You offer safety, protection, a life without cruelty. My own father calls me cursed. My pack threw me away. You're offering more than I've had in 5 years. She paused, then added, I accept your terms, my lord. I expect nothing from you but what you've promised. I will be silent, invisible, useful, and I will ask for nothing more. Caius read her words. For just a moment, surprise crossed his features. Confusion, perhaps, that she hadn't wept, hadn't pleaded, hadn't tried to bargain for more. You accept, he repeated slowly. Just like that. Seren met his eyes and nodded. Most women would beg for affection, promise to change my mind, swear they could make me love them. She took the parchment back. Wrote again. I am not most women, and I learned long ago that begging changes nothing. Caius studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He almost smiled. It wasn't a real smile, just a slight softening at the corners of his mouth, there and gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Perhaps I chose better than I knew, he murmured. He moved to his desk, retrieved a document. The contract. Sign here, and you become Lady of Valdris, my wife, mother to my future heirs. He paused. My silent, invisible, useful wife. Seren signed. The ink was still wet when Caius rolled the document and sealed it. The ceremony will be in 3 days, he said. Public. Required for legitimacy. After that, you'll have your own chambers, servants who understand discretion, everything you need. He met her eyes one final time. Except me. That you will never have. He turned back to the fire. Dismissal. Seren rose, walked to the door, paused with her hand on the iron handle. She didn't know what made her do it. Some flicker of defiance that hadn't quite died. She turned back, caught his eye, and pressed her hand to her heart. Thank you. She couldn't speak the words, but she made sure he understood them. Caius's expression wavered. Something almost like discomfort crossed his features. "Don't thank me," he said roughly. "I'm not being kind. I'm being practical." Seren inclined her head and left. But as she walked through the cold corridors toward her new chambers, she thought about the way his voice had caught on that last word. The way he'd looked away when she'd thanked him. He believed himself incapable of kindness. She wondered if he was wrong. The morning of the ceremony, Seren woke to find she wasn't alone. A woman sat in the chair beside her window, watching her with eyes that held no warmth. She was beautiful, sleek dark hair and sharp features, dressed in silks that cost more than Serene's entire wardrobe from Thornwick. "So you're the silent one," the woman said. "The Omega my brother plucked from obscurity." Seren sat up slowly, clutching the blankets to her chest. "I'm Vespera." The woman didn't smile. "Caius's sister. And I wanted to meet you before the ceremony, to see what manner of creature had finally trapped the untrappable." Seren reached for the parchment and quill she now kept beside her bed. She wrote quickly, "I trapped no one. Your brother chose me." Vespera laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "Oh, I know why he chose you. He thinks a mute woman is safe, controllable, that your silence makes you harmless." She leaned forward. "But I've been watching you since you arrived. The way you observe everything. The way your eyes track every conversation even though you cannot participate. You're not harmless at all, are you?" Seren didn't respond. "My brother has many enemies," Vespera continued. "Some in rival packs. Some much closer to home. He thinks he's protected himself by choosing a voiceless bride. But voices aren't the only way to betray someone." She stood, moved closer. "Written words can be just as dangerous. Gestures, signals. A woman doesn't need to speak to pass secrets." Seren wrote, "I have no secrets to pass. I am exactly what your brother believes me to be. Harmless." "No one is harmless." Vespera's voice dropped to something colder. "I loved my brother once. The one Caius executed. Marek was kind to me, protected me, and Caius killed him without a moment's hesitation." Seren's hand stilled. "They called it treason. Said Marek was conspiring with the southern packs. But I was there, little Omega. I know what really happened." Vespera's eyes glittered. "Marek discovered something about Caius, something that could destroy him, and Caius silenced him for it." "What did he discover?" Seren didn't realize she'd written the question until Vespera smiled. "Curious, aren't you, behind those silent, watchful eyes?" Vespera moved toward the door. "Perhaps we'll speak again. When you've been here longer. When you've seen what my brother really is." She paused at the threshold. "A word of warning, little Omega. Caius chose you because he believes he cannot love you, cannot know you. But what happens when he discovers you're not the harmless creature he imagined? What happens when he realizes you see things, know things, understand things that a mute Omega shouldn't?" Ice spread through Serene's veins. "He killed his own brother to protect his secrets," Vespera said softly. "Imagine what he'll do to a wife." Then she was gone. The ceremony took place at sunset. The great hall of Valdris Keep had been transformed. Banners hung from the rafters. Torches blazed in every sconce. Hundreds of wolves had gathered, representatives from every pack in the northern territories, summoned to witness their warlord finally take a mate. Seren stood at the far end of the hall, dressed in silver silk that felt like water against her skin. Her hands trembled, her heart raced. Vespera's words echoed in her mind. He killed his own brother. Imagine what he'll do to a wife. She should run. That was the logical choice. Flee before the ceremony, before she was bound to this cold, dangerous alpha who saw her only as a useful tool. But where would she go? Her pack had discarded her. Her father wanted her dead. The labor camps awaited anyone who fled a mating contract. There was no escape, only forward. The music began. Seren walked. Every eye turned toward her. Whispers erupted immediately. She's the one? The mute? Why would Alpha Caius choose damaged goods? There must be something else, some hidden value we don't see. Seren kept her gaze fixed ahead, on the altar, on the priest waiting with ancient words, on the massive figure standing with his back to her, shoulders rigid beneath black, formal attire. Alpha Caius, her husband in mere moments. She reached the altar, stopped beside him. He turned. For one instant, something flickered across his granite features. His eyes swept over her, taking in the silver silk, the way the torchlight caught her dark hair, the steady calm in her expression despite the terror beneath. "You came," he said quietly. Seren raised an eyebrow. "Where else would I go?" He almost smiled again, that same slight softening she'd glimpsed before. Most would have tried to flee. She shook her head, gestured. "No point." "No," he agreed. "There isn't." The priest cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony itself was ancient, binding, and irrevocable. Words were spoken, vows exchanged. When it came time for Seren to respond, Caius spoke for her. "She accepts," he said, in silence but with clear intent. The priest looked uncertain but continued. "By the old laws and the sacred bonds, I pronounce you mated. Alpha and Omega, husband and wife." He turned to Caius. "You may claim your bride." The hall held its breath. Claiming required a bite, a mark, teeth against throat in the most vulnerable place. Caius turned to face her fully. His hand rose, fingers brushing against her jaw, tilting her head to expose her neck. Seren's pulse hammered. This was it. The moment she became truly his. His breath was warm against her throat. She felt his lips part, felt the graze of teeth against sensitive skin. Then, nothing. He pulled back. The crowd gasped. "The claiming will happen in private," Caius announced, his voice carrying through the stunned silence. "My wife deserves dignity, not spectacle." The priest sputtered. "But my lord, tradition demands—" "Tradition can wait." Caius's eyes swept the hall, daring anyone to challenge him. "My wife. My choice." No one argued. Seren stared at him, heart pounding for an entirely different reason now. He'd protected her, in front of everyone, chosen her comfort over ancient tradition. Why? He met her gaze. Something unreadable flickered in those storm-gray eyes. "Don't look at me like that," he muttered, low enough that only she could hear. "I told you, this isn't kindness. A public claiming serves no practical purpose." Seren held his gaze. Slowly, deliberately, she pressed her hand to her heart again. "Thank you." Caius's jaw tightened. He looked away, but not before she saw it, the crack in his armor, the flicker of something he was desperate to deny. The feast began. Music swelled. Guests descended to offer congratulations that felt more like interrogations, but through it all, Seren watched her new husband, and she wondered what secrets Alpha Caius of Valdris was hiding. What had his brother discovered? And what would happen when she discovered it too? The wedding night arrived like an executioner. Seren sat on the edge of an enormous bed in chambers she didn't recognize, dressed in a nightgown of white silk that felt like a shroud. The discreet servants Caius had assigned to her, women trained never to speak of what they saw, had bathed her in lavender water, brushed her hair until it gleamed, and left her alone with soft words of reassurance. None of it helped. She knew what was expected. The contract was clear. "You will share my bed until you produce heirs." Clinical words for something that should be intimate, but intimacy required trust, and trust required knowing someone. Caius had made it clear he never wanted to know her. 3 knocks. Measured. Precise. Saren's hands clenched in her lap. She nodded even though he couldn't see her, then remembered her voice was useless anyway. The door opened. Caius entered wearing a simple black robe, his formal attire discarded. Without the ceremonial trappings, he looked almost human, almost approachable. Almost. He closed the door behind him. For a long moment he simply stood there studying her the way a general might study unfamiliar terrain. "You're afraid?" he said finally. Saren shook her head. "Don't lie, I can smell it." She reached for the small slate and chalk she now kept beside her bed. Her fingers quivered as she wrote. "Not afraid of you? Afraid of disappointing you." Caius crossed the room, took the slate, read her words. A shadow passed across his features. "Disappointing me, how?" I am not experienced. I don't know what you expect." His eyes met hers. For the first time, she saw something other than cold calculation there, something almost like understanding. "I expect nothing," he said quietly. "I told you. This is practical. Heirs. Nothing more." "That doesn't answer my question." A pause. Then, unexpectedly, "What do you want to know?" Saren hesitated. Then she wrote, "Will you hurt me?" Caius went very still. "Is that what you think of me?" His voice was low, dangerous, but not angry. "That I would force myself on a trembling Omega? That I would take pleasure in your pain?" She met his gaze steadily. "I think you are a man who killed his own brother. I think you are feared by everyone who knows your name. I think I have no idea what you're capable of." He read her words. Something heavy settled in his expression. Not offense. Something deeper. "I killed my brother," he said slowly, "because he gave me no choice. Because he would have destroyed everything I was sworn to protect." He set the slate down. "But I have never hurt someone who didn't deserve it. And I have never taken an unwilling woman to my bed." He stepped closer. Seren's breath caught. "If you want to wait," he said, "we wait. If you want to stop, we stop. If you want me to leave and never return to these chambers, I will find another way to secure my succession." She stared at him. Why? She hadn't meant to write it. The chalk moved of its own accord. "Why would you give me that power? You're the alpha. The warlord. You could take whatever you wanted." Caius's jaw tightened. "Because power means nothing if it requires cruelty to maintain." He turned away, moving toward the window. Moonlight caught his profile, highlighting the scar that ran down his face. "My father was cruel," he said, his back to her. "He believed an alpha's strength came from breaking others. He broke my mother. Broke my brother. Tried to break me." A pause. "I swore I would never become him." Seren rose from the bed, crossed the room silently, stopped beside him. She reached out, her fingers hovering near his arm, hesitating. Then she touched him. He flinched as if burned, but he didn't pull away. Her fingers rested on his forearm. Even through the fabric of his robe she could feel it. His skin was cold. Not cool the way skin became in winter. Cold the way stone was cold. The way death was cold. She pulled back, alarmed. Caius turned. He'd seen her reaction. "Now you know," he said flatly. "Another reason I chose a wife who cannot speak, so she cannot tell others what she feels when she touches me." Seren grabbed her slate. "What happened to you?" "Nothing that concerns you. You're freezing. Like ice. That's not natural." "No," he agreed. "It isn't. Is it a curse? A sickness?" His expression shuddered. "It's a reminder of the price I paid for what I did, for who I became." He moved past her, toward the door. "Wait." The word was soundless, but Seren's hand shot out, catching his wrist. He stopped, turned back, stared at her hand on his frozen skin. Seren didn't let go. Instead, she lifted her other hand, pressed it to her own chest, then reached out and pressed it to his. "Let me help." She couldn't write it, but she made sure he understood. Something cracked in his expression. Pain, longing, fear. "You can't help me," he said roughly. "No one can." He pulled free and left. But Seren stood in the moonlight for a long time afterward, her palms still tingling from the cold. And she wondered what kind of curse could freeze a man from the inside out. Weeks passed. The mating remained unconsummated. Caius visited her chambers each night as appearances demanded, but he never touched her beyond what was necessary. A hand on her arm during public functions. A formal kiss on her knuckles when courtiers watched. In private, he kept his distance. But he didn't stop coming. Seren didn't understand it. He could have avoided her entirely. Could have sent servants with messages, conducted their arrangement through intermediaries. Instead, he appeared each evening, sat in the chair by her fire, and stayed. Sometimes he brought documents, maps of the territories, reports from his generals, correspondence from rival pacts. He'd work in silence while she read by the fire. Sometimes he brought questions. "The eastern border disputes," he said one night, not looking up from a map. "3 villages claim the same water source. Each has legitimate grievances. How would you resolve it?" Seren looked up from her book. He was watching her now, gray eyes intent. She reached for her slate. "Share the water. Rotating access. Each village gets primary rights for 1 season, with strict penalties for overuse." Caius read her words, his brow furrowed. "That's essentially what my council suggested." "Then why ask me?" "Because my council took 3 hours of arguing to reach that conclusion." Something almost like amusement crossed his face. "You did it in 30 seconds. I have fewer people to impress." This time, he did smile. Small, brief, but real. "You're cleverer than you let on," he said. "I'm exactly as clever as I let on. You simply expected me to be stupid because I cannot speak." He looked at her for a long moment. "I expected you to be many things. Stupid was never one of them." The fire crackled between them. Something shifted in the air. Something warm despite his frozen skin. "Why did you stop speaking?" The question came suddenly. Seren's chalk stopped mid-stroke. "You weren't born mute," Caius continued. "The reports say you spoke normally until 5 years ago. Then nothing." He paused. "What happened?" Seren's grip faltered on her slate. She wrote slowly. "I watched my mother die. I was hiding. I tried to scream for help. Nothing came out. It hasn't come back." Caius was silent for a long time. "Who killed her?" "Rogues. Raiders from the southern wastes. They came for supplies. She refused to tell them where my father hid the pack's emergency stores." Seren paused. "She died protecting him. He blamed me for not saving her." "You were barely more than a child." "I was old enough to scream. Old enough to run for help. Old enough to do something besides hide under a bed and watch." The words came faster now, anger bleeding through. "He never forgave me. Called me cursed from that day forward. Said my silence was punishment for my cowardice." "Your father is a fool." Seren looked up sharply. Caius was watching her with an expression she'd never seen before. Not cold, not calculating. Something fierce and almost protective. "You were 18 years old," he said firmly. "Watching your mother murdered? And you blame yourself for not dying alongside her?" "I blame myself for surviving when she didn't." "Then you're a fool too." He rose, crossed the room, stopped directly in front of her chair. "Survival isn't cowardice, it's strength. And your silence isn't a curse. It's armor. You built it to protect yourself from unbearable pain." Seren stared up at him, tears burning behind her eyes. "How do you know?" "Because I recognize it." His voice was rough. "I built armor too. After my brother. After everything that followed, we do what we must to survive. He reached out. His cold fingers brushed her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. She shivered. Not from the cold, from something else entirely. I told you I could never love you, Caius said quietly. I meant it. I have to mean it. But that doesn't mean I can't. He stopped, pulled his hand back. I should go. Seren caught his wrist. She stood, bringing them close enough that she could feel the unnatural cold radiating from his skin. Close enough to see the war in his eyes. She pressed her palm to his chest again, felt his frozen heart beating beneath. Then she did something she hadn't done since her mother died. She mouthed words. Stay. No sound emerged, but she shaped them carefully, made sure he understood. Caius's composure cracked. Pain, longing, terror. You don't know what you're asking, he whispered. Then tell me. I can't. Why? Because if I tell you, you'll try to fix it. His hands came up, cupped her face. His palms were ice against her skin. And I can't watch you destroy yourself trying to save something that can't be saved. He kissed her forehead. Gentle, reverent, cold as winter. Then he left. But this time, Seren didn't let him take all the warmth with him. This time, something stayed. 3 months later, everything changed. It started with joy. You're certain? Seren wrote, her hand trembling so badly the words were barely legible. The healer smiled. Absolutely certain, my lady. You carry the Alpha's air. Seren pressed her hand to her stomach. A child. After months of careful, gentle intimacy that had grown from obligation to something neither of them would name. A child. She had to tell Caius. She found him in the war room, surrounded by generals and advisors. He looked up when she entered, and something shifted in his expression. Something almost like hope. Leave us, he commanded. The room emptied in seconds. Caius crossed to her, moving faster than she'd ever seen him move. What is it? What's wrong? Seren smiled. Actually smiled, her face aching with an expression she'd almost forgotten. She took his hand, pressed it to her stomach. His eyes widened. You're... She nodded. A child. Our child. Another nod. Caius dropped to his knees. Actually dropped. The great Alpha warlord of Valdris, kneeling before his silent Omega wife with both hands pressed to her belly. A child, he repeated, his voice cracking. I thought, after everything, I thought I'd never... Seren ran her fingers through his hair. She'd never seen him like this. Vulnerable. Open. Happy. I love you. The words came from him, sudden and raw and terrible. Seren froze. Caius looked up at her, and his eyes were wet. The Alpha who never smiled, never softened, never showed weakness was crying. I know I said I couldn't. I know I swore I wouldn't. But I love you, Seren. I've loved you since the moment you stopped thanking me and started challenging me. Since you touched my frozen skin and didn't flinch away. Since you looked at me like I was a man instead of a monster. He pressed his forehead to her stomach. I love you, he whispered. And I'm so sorry. Sorry? She couldn't write it. Her slate was across the room, but her hands found his face, tilted it up, and forced him to look at her. Why sorry? Because I've doomed you. The words hung in the air. Dread pooled in Seren's stomach. The curse, Caius said, his voice hollow. What I believed was my brother's dying curse. The cold that lives in my bones. But there's more to it. He met her eyes. If I ever truly love someone, the bond becomes a weapon. It ties their life to mine. And if that bond is ever severed, broken, or challenged, his voice cracked. They die. Not me. Them. He rose, backing away, his expression crumbling. I tried not to love you. I chose you because I thought it was impossible. A mute Omega, someone I could never truly know. But you, his voice broke. You made me know you without words, made me love you without trying, and now I've doomed you. Seren shook her head frantically, ran to her slate. I don't believe in curses. You felt my skin, my frozen heart. You think that's natural? Caius was pacing now, wild with despair. I was cursed as my brother died. The cold was forced into my very bones. You will never warm to anyone, the words said. And if you ever do, they will burn for it. There must be a way to break it. There isn't. I've searched for 10 years. Every witch, every healer, every ancient text. The curse cannot be broken, only fulfilled. Seren's hands shook. Then don't love me. Stop loving me. Push me away. I can't. The roar echoed through the war room. Caius slammed his fist against the stone wall, and frost spread from the impact like spiderwebs. Don't you understand? I tried. Every night I came to your chambers, I told myself it was duty. Every time you made me laugh, I told myself it meant nothing. Every time you looked at me with those eyes that see everything. His voice dropped to a whisper. I was already lost. The door burst open. Vespera stood in the threshold, flanked by guards. Her expression was triumphant. I warned you, little Omega. She smiled coldly. I told you my brother destroyed everything he touched. Vespera. Caius's voice went dangerous. What have you done? What Marek asked me to do. She stepped inside, producing a scroll sealed with black wax. Before you murdered him, he gave me instructions. Insurance, in case his curse wasn't enough. She unrolled the scroll. This is a declaration, signed by 7 pack leaders, stating that Alpha Caius of Valdris concealed a death curse from his mate, thereby trapping her in a fraudulent union. Under ancient law, such deception constitutes betrayal of the highest order. Seren's heart stopped. The punishment, Vespera continued, savoring each word, is dissolution of the mating bond. The female is free to choose another mate. The male, she smiled at her brother. The male forfeits his territory to the Council of Packs. You can't do this, Caius snarled. I already have. The council convenes at dawn, and when they hear how you deceived your poor, voiceless bride, Vespera's eyes gleamed. You'll lose everything, just like Marek said you would. She turned to Seren. Come, little Omega. I'll take you somewhere safe, away from the monster who tricked you into loving him. Seren didn't move. No? Vespera's smile flickered. Still loyal? How touching. But it doesn't matter. The council will dissolve your bond whether you agree or not, and once you're no longer his mate, her expression darkened. The curse will have no hold on you. You'll be free. She won't survive it. Caius's voice was barely human. The bond is already forming. Breaking it now, while she carries my child. He looked at Seren, and his eyes held nothing but devastation. It would kill her. The curse ensures it. Vespera's smile widened. Yes, she said softly. I know. She swept from the room, her guards following. Silence fell. Seren stood frozen, one hand on her belly, staring at her husband, her mate. The man who'd loved her despite swearing he never would. The man whose love might kill her. Is it true? She wanted to ask. Is there really no way out? But she couldn't write, couldn't move, could barely breathe. Caius crossed to her, took her face in his frozen hands. I will fix this, he swore. I don't know how, but I will find a way. I won't let you die for loving me. Seren looked into his eyes, saw the desperation, the determination, the love he'd never wanted to feel. And for the first time since her mother's death, she wished she could scream. The council would convene at dawn. Seren had hours, not days, to find a way to save everything. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. could barely think beyond the terror clawing at her chest. Caius had locked himself in the war room with his generals, desperately searching for some legal precedent, some ancient law that might protect them. But Saren had seen his face when Vespera left. He didn't believe he could win, so she would have to. Saren slipped through the castle corridors, silent as a ghost. Her silence had always been her prison. Tonight, it would be her weapon. She made her way to the archives, the vast underground library where Valdris kept records dating back centuries. If there was a secret to be found, it would be here. The archivist was asleep at his desk, an empty wine bottle beside him. Seren moved past without waking him. She didn't know what she was looking for, only that something about Vespera's story didn't fit. Marek gave me instructions. Insurance. Why would a dying man, cursing his brother with his final breath, trust his sister with backup plans? Unless... Seren pulled records from the shelves, council proceedings, trial transcripts, the official account of Marek's treason and execution. The documents painted a clear picture. Marek had been caught corresponding with the Southern Pax, planning a coup to overthrow Caius. The evidence was irrefutable. Multiple witnesses, signed confessions from conspirators. But something nagged at her. She kept searching, deeper into the archives, older records, and then she found it. A letter, yellowed with age, hidden between two unrelated documents. The handwriting was feminine, elegant, familiar. Brother, the plan proceeds as we discussed. Caius suspects nothing. Once you take the throne, I will be at your side as promised. Together we will rule Valdris as it was meant to be ruled. The evidence has been planted. When the time comes, Caius will be executed for the very crimes we committed in his name. Your devoted sister, Vespera. Seren's hands shook. Vespera. Vespera had been the conspirator. Not Marek alone. They'd planned to frame Caius for treason, execute him, and take the throne together. But something had gone wrong. Caius had discovered the plot first, executed Marek before Vespera could act, and Vespera had been playing the grieving sister ever since, waiting for another chance at revenge. The curse, the council, the dissolution of the mating bond. It was all her. Seren grabbed the letter and ran. She burst into the war room without knocking. Caius and his generals looked up, startled. She thrust the letter into Caius's hands. He read it. His face went white. Where did you find this? Seren grabbed her slate, wrote frantically. Hidden in the archives. Vespera was the conspirator. She and Marek planned to frame you. She's been planning revenge ever since. Caius's expression shifted, from shock to fury to something cold and terrible. Generals, leave us! They fled. Caius turned to Seren. The letter crumpled in his fist. My sister, he said quietly. My own sister. She cursed you. Not Marek. His eyes snapped to hers. Seren wrote faster. Think about it. Marek was a warrior, not a witch. Where would he learn curse magic? But Vespera spent years studying with the Southern mystics. She has the knowledge, the power. But why curse me to freeze? Why the cold? Because she wanted you to suffer? Wanted you isolated? A man who can't be touched, can't be warmed, can't be loved. She was punishing you slowly, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now she has it. Caius's voice was hollow. A pregnant mate, a forming bond, the council's backing. We have evidence of her treason. Evidence that's 10 years old. She'll claim it's a forgery, that I fabricated it to save myself. Seren grabbed his arm, made him look at her. Then we need her to confess. She'll never confess. Not willingly. Not willingly, no. Seren's expression hardened, but I know how to make her talk. Dawn arrived cold and gray. The council chamber was packed. 7 pack leaders sat in judgment, their faces grim. Vespera stood before them, beautiful and poised, the picture of righteous accusation. Caius entered with Seren at his side. Whispers erupted. The council recognizes Alpha Caius of Valdris, the head counselor announced, and his mate. The hesitation was deliberate, insulting. Caius's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Lady Vespera has presented serious accusations, the counselor continued. Fraud, deception, concealment of a death curse. How do you answer? I answer, Caius said, by calling my accuser a liar. Gasps. Vespera's eyes narrowed. My brother cursed me, yes. I've carried that curse for 10 years. But the curse wasn't his alone. Caius stepped forward. It was cast by someone with actual magical knowledge. Someone who studied with Southern mystics. Someone who's been waiting a decade for the perfect moment to destroy me. He pointed at Vespera. My sister is the true traitor. She conspired with Marek to overthrow me. And when that failed, she cursed me herself. Everything she's told this council is a lie designed to finish what she started. Vespera laughed. Desperation makes my brother creative. Do you have any proof of these absurd claims? Caius produced the letter. Vespera's smile flickered. Just slightly, but Seren saw it. A forgery, Vespera said smoothly, created by a desperate man trying to save his doomed mate. Then you won't mind if we verify the handwriting, Caius replied. Compare it to your other correspondence, your journals, your... Enough. Vespera's composure cracked. This is a waste of the council's time. The evidence against my brother is clear. His mate is dying. The curse is real. Nothing else matters. But it does matter, a new voice said. Every head turned. Seren stepped forward. Not Seren as they knew her. Not the silent, invisible Omega. She held a slate in her hands, but she wasn't writing. She was speaking. The words came rough, broken, barely above a whisper after 5 years of silence. But they came. I know what you did. Vespera's face went pale. I found the letter, your letter, to Marek. Each word was agony, each word was triumph. You planned to frame Caius, kill him, take the throne. She can speak? Someone whispered. The mute Omega can speak? Seren forced herself to continue. When that failed, you cursed him yourself, made him cold, unlovable, isolated. Her voice grew stronger with each sentence. You waited for someone to break through, someone he could love, because that was the trigger. She stepped closer to Vespera. You didn't want to just kill him. You wanted to destroy him, make him love someone, then take them away. Vespera's composure shattered. You don't know anything, she screamed. You're a worthless, voiceless Omega from a nothing pack. How dare you? How dare I what? Seren's voice was hoarse, cracking, and beautiful. Speak the truth? She turned to the council. Test her magic. The curse on Caius. She cast it. She can break it. I will not submit to. Then you admit it. Seren's words landed like a blade. An innocent person would welcome the test, would prove their innocence, but you... Seren shook her head. You're terrified, because you know what they'll find. Vespera's eyes darted around the chamber, the guards, the counselors, the pack leaders watching with growing suspicion. She had no allies here, not anymore. Fine. Her voice went cold, deadly. You want the truth? Here it is. She raised her hands. Dark energy crackled between her fingers. I cursed him. I cursed my perfect, beloved brother who murdered the only person who ever truly understood me. I made him cold because he made my heart cold when he killed Marek. And I waited. Waited for him to finally feel something for someone, so I could rip it away. She pointed at Seren. And you, little Omega, ruined everything. You made him love you. You made him happy. I was going to watch you die, watch the curse consume you, watch him shatter into a million pieces. She laughed, wild and terrible. But since you've exposed me anyway. She lunged. Dark magic erupted from her hands, aimed directly at Serene's heart. Caius moved faster. He threw himself between them, taking the blast full in the chest. The impact lifted him off his feet, sent him crashing into the stone wall. Caius! Serene's scream echoed through the chamber. Her actual scream. Raw. Primal. A sound she hadn't made in 5 years. And something happened. Light exploded from her throat. Golden. Warm. Impossibly bright. It crashed into Vespera, shattering her dark magic, driving her to her knees. Seren didn't understand what was happening, didn't care. She only knew she was screaming, finally screaming after 5 years of silence, and the sound was tearing through the curse like fire through ice. Vespera collapsed, unconscious. The dark magic dissipated. And across the chamber, frost began to crack on Caius's skin. The ice was melting. Seren ran to Caius, falling to her knees beside him. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow, but his skin was warm. Caius. Her voice was still rough, still broken, but it was hers. Caius, please. His eyes fluttered open. Gray, storm gray, but different now, softer. You spoke, he whispered. Tears streamed down her face. I screamed. You screamed. A smile curved his lips, weak but real. For me. For you. She pressed her forehead to his. Always for you. The head counselor approached cautiously. Alpha Caius, the curse, is broken. Caius sat up slowly, Seren supporting him. He looked at his hands, flexed his fingers. I can feel it. The cold. It's gone. The Omega's voice, someone murmured. Her scream shattered the curse. Not just any scream. The council's mystic stepped forward, studying Seren with new eyes. A true bond cry. When a mate screams for their bonded with pure, desperate love, it can break almost anything. Seren looked at Caius. I didn't know I could do that. Neither did I. He cupped her face in his hands, his warm hands. But I'm not surprised. You've been breaking me since the day we met. She laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty, unused, but beautiful. Lady Vespera will face trial for attempted murder and curse casting, the head counselor announced. The charges against Alpha Caius are dismissed. Guards dragged Vespera's unconscious form away. Caius stood, pulling Seren up with him. He addressed the council. My wife saved my life. My mate broke a curse that held me for 10 years, and she did it by finding her voice. He looked down at her with such tenderness that it hurt to witness. There will be no more talk of dissolved bonds or fraudulent unions. She is mine. I am hers. And our child will inherit everything we build together. He turned to Seren. Speaking of which, are you all right? The baby? She pressed his hand to her stomach. We're fine. Both of us. His smile could have melted the sun. 9 months later. The naming ceremony drew wolves from every territory. Seren stood in the great hall of Valdris Keep, their daughter cradled in her arms. Little Mira had her father's gray eyes and her mother's dark hair. She was perfect. Caius stood beside her, one arm around his wife, the other resting on their daughter's blanket. Lords and ladies of the 5 territories, he announced, I present Mira of Valdris, first daughter of Alpha Caius and Lady Seren. Future of our united packs. Cheers erupted. Seren watched the crowd, ambassadors, pack leaders, common wolves who'd traveled weeks to witness this moment. Among them stood familiar faces. Her father was notably absent. He'd been stripped of his rank after the truth emerged about how he'd treated her. Last she heard, he was working as a laborer in the eastern quarries. She couldn't bring herself to care. But another face caught her attention. A young woman with dark hair and guilty eyes, hovering at the edge of the crowd. Vespera's daughter, Lysandra, only 17, innocent of her mother's crimes. Seren had argued for mercy, argued that the sins of the mother shouldn't damn the child. Caius had agreed reluctantly. Lysandra was being raised now by a kind family in the Western Pac, given a chance to become something other than what her mother wanted. After the ceremony, Seren found a quiet moment on the balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, warm arms wrapped around her from behind. "She's beautiful," Caius murmured against her hair. "Like her mother." Seren leaned back into him. "She has your stubbornness. Already refuses to sleep when she's supposed to." "Definitely my daughter, then." They stood together, needing no words, watching the sunset. "I never thanked you," Caius said quietly. Seren turned in his arms. "For what?" "For seeing me. The real me. Not the warlord or the monster or the frozen king." He pressed his forehead to hers. "You looked at a man everyone feared and saw someone worth loving. You made it easy. I made it impossible. On purpose. And yet," she smiled, "here we are." He kissed her, soft, warm. The warmth still felt like a miracle after years of ice. "I love you," he said. "I know I say it every day now. I know you're probably tired of hearing it." "Never." She touched his face. "I spent 5 years in silence. I'll never get tired of hearing your voice. Or using mine." As if on cue, Mira let out a demanding wail from inside. Seren laughed. "Your daughter is summoning us." "Our daughter." Caius took her hand. "Our family. Our future." They walked inside together. Behind them, the sun finished setting on the old world. The world of curses and silence and frozen hearts. Ahead of them, a new world was beginning. A world where a voiceless Omega had found her scream. A world where a frozen warlord had found his warmth. A world where love, against all odds and impossible vows, had won. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and they mean more than you know.